Well, I'm extremely fortunate to have two people I perhaps admire among the most in the world for many reasons, apart from software side, what you're doing now. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Last time we talked, I asked him to do a sound check, 1, 2, 3, 4. And he said 1 billion, 2 billion, 3, and all the IIT students, they never forgot that. Now, if I asked you to do a sound check, 1, 2, 3, 4, what would you say?
Maybe I'd say 1 million lives saved, 2 million lives saved,
Yeah.
3 million.
Right.
Hopefully that's what we're doing with some of the work.
That's what you're doing, yeah. You know, my wife, I think you might have met her. She and I are co-founders of NDTV. So she's my boss at work and at home. Who's the boss here?
Well, we're pretty equal on the foundation work, and we love talking to each other about areas where one of us will get more in depth. Some of the science things, I love to go to great depth. We actually have our strategy review coming up, where we'll sit with all the groups and both get a chance to give them feedback. So we're running it together.
Equal bosses.
Doing it all together,
God,
yeah.
you're one step ahead of me. But actually, you've got children. They're the real bosses.
Yeah, on some days that's true.
That's true. So I've just read that your 2015 annual letter. It's fascinating. You're saying that, explain exactly that. In 15 years from now, in the next 15 years, the poor in the world will improve more than they've ever improved before, number one, and their lives will improve more than the lives of the rich. Which is a huge statement, because, you know, we've talked about the gap narrowing, we've seen the gap widening, and now it actually, in real terms, it'll narrow. What's the basis of that very optimistic forecast?
Yeah, I'd make that forecast both for the world and for India. India's a good example where the opportunity to get the new vaccines out and to really measure the performance of the health system and the education system, and get a little bit of technology into the education system, get digital banking in. In fact, our big bet of this 15-year improvement will only come true if India leads the way. And that's why we're very excited about how the government's pushing some of these key issues. We're excited about the partnerships we have. And it's, we think we're both realistic and optimistic, because we've seen pilot programs that show us that these things really can work.
I mean, that's a big statement, that it'll happen if India leads the way. And you've just been to India a few months ago,
yes.
September, I think. Do you feel we can leave we are very self-critical, so...
No, absolutely. First of all, when you look just from the point of view of science and innovation, if you took just that lens alone, which I won't, but just thinking of the vaccine companies, Serum Institute, Bharat, what they're doing in vaccines to create new vaccines and bring the prices down is just remarkable. And when you say that India has 16% of the maternal deaths in the world and a third of the children's deaths in the world, newborn deaths, that India is actually focusing on childhood deaths, bringing the right science and the right delivery to bear. What we're seeing with the governments of UP and Bihar, and how they're partnering with CARE and the University of Manitoba to say, these are the things we need to teach women to do. Kangaroo care, immediate and exclusive breastfeeding, clean cord care, those things are making a difference, and it's what's going to bring down that death rate. And not only focusing on the under 5 deaths, but focusing now on newborn deaths with the Newborn Action Plan. It's really remarkable.
So India's actually, you're optimistic about India. Most, like all of us, are very critical, which is a major failing amongst Indians. But things are happening in India, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's a paradox, which is that when countries are the most self-critical is often when they do their best work. You know, in the U.S., as we got into the 1980s and 1990s, we were talking about, Japan has lower capital costs and they sing their company songs better than we do, and the government coordinates the R&D better than we do. And we were feeling, hey, was our model, which was working very well and was more dynamic. In fact, some great things economically, technologically happened there. And, it's great that Indians are saying, hey, the government needs to do its role. It needs to enable the private sector to do its role. And then, although it's not as big as the other two, I think the growth of philanthropy in India is great. We just had lunch with a group of philanthropists, 4 of whom were leaders of the Indian
I
philanthropy
think
movement.
Mr. Anil Agarwal mentioned that you met him and convinced him he should donate, and he was eager recipient, and he is donating a lot.
Yeah, his energy on this really impressed me.
He mentioned the whole incident and the conversation with you, which is stuck in his mind.
I went home that day and I said, this is the first time somebody's called me their guru. And Melinda was very jealous, but then...
I don't think you should be somebody's guru.
Then
not? Yes,
he
sir.
met her and he said, no, maybe she should be my guru. So we're competing.
So just coming back to this, your annual report, this 2015, I know you've been talking a lot about it, but I was really impressed by the 4 areas you're kind of targeting on. One is health, second farming, third digital banking, which is a new one, not new as a phenomenon, but seen as a major thrust area, and I totally agree with. And the fourth one is education. I'm going to ask you both a ridiculous question. You have $4 billion only. Which would you spend? How much of each of that $4 billion would you spend on each of these 4?
Well, of course, our money compared to the budgets of any government, the United States, the Indian government, is very small. But we've seen that our ability to find scientific projects, backing this rotavirus vaccine, probably government wouldn't have done that. So we had a chance to work with Rajban, work with the Bharat partner there, and get something done. Now, to actually roll it out, the health system's going to have to work, and most of that financing will be from the government. So we've been very catalytic. So I would still do vaccine research.
You call it catalytic philanthropy, right?
Right.
That's what you're propagating everybody should do.
And where we have really 2 advantages. One is our willingness to bet on science. And the other is often to bring in sort of a management consulting point of view. We've been able to fund at both the state level and federal level some really top-notch consulting type thinkers who look at where is the vaccine coverage not good, and they're called technical support units, and they help the government use its resources in a smart way. So, National Rural Health Mission was a lot of resources, but hiring top-notch people to say, okay, this part's working, this part's not. We were able to be a big catalytic and help with that.
Yeah.
But
I actually just asked that how would you allocate $4 billion just to get a category or some order of which is more significant?
So today, we spend the majority of our money between those 4 categories we'd say is in global health. We've been expanding into the other ones over time. But the reason for that is that we think health is a precursor to everything else in life. If you don't grow up healthy and don't have proper nutrition, then you can't get a great education and participate in the economy.
Yes, exactly.
So the other thing that I would just say about India that maybe again in your mode of being self-critical of yourselves, that we see that you don't see in places, as many places around the world, is this system, this platform that has been built out, while still imperfect in places, the ASHA workers and the A&Ms. If you get that system really tuned and working, which is now happening, the ASHA workers are being more deeply trained, they're hooking up with the A&Ms, you have this unbelievable platform to reach families all over the northern part of India. And so one of the things we've been involved with is helping with that delivery platform and making sure that that training happens. And so we're seeing more services delivered, and it's why we're so optimistic that newborn deaths and childhood deaths will come down.
When you were in India, did you meet anybody that kind of made you think, gosh, this is different or
I love
special?
I love to meet with families when I'm on the ground, and so I was out actually with the ASHA workers, and I was just as a Western woman in my khaki pants and my sari that day on top, and I met a young woman named Sharmila, and she'd already had 4 children, and she had gone and advocated with the help of the ASHA workers. She learned about family planning tools, and what she wanted to do was use a family planning tool, contraceptive, for the first time. And she had to convince her husband. He wasn't initially in favor of it, but then he said, yes, if we're going to educate our children and have the money, I'll go with you to my parents and tell them this is the right thing to do. And she said it took 3 conversations with her in-laws, but they had decided then as a couple that for now they were going to just have 4 children and maybe more later. And she was so proud of what she'd learned and how she'd learned to advocate for herself and what she thought was right for her children. And so she inspires me when I go out and talk about global health around the world.
Right. And respect for your elders and go and get there buy-in is important. Now, I've seen you doing a pretty ghastly thing, drinking water from a sewer. But I just kept thinking, well, if you can do that, you can clean the Ganga. Is that a really viable thing that you can, where sewage goes into, say, a river, you can build what you have, that is omnipressor?
Omniprocessor, exactly.
Omniprocessor, yeah.
Yeah, all the technologies that clean up sewage have been very expensive. Yes. And the way it's done in the United States is we have clean water and we make that water dirty and we pipe it back, and that would be very expensive. And so we challenged engineers to make a much lower cost processing system. And we said not only do we want it to process the sewage, if possible, we want it to generate something valuable, some fertilizer chemicals, some clean water, and some electricity. And then instead of people dumping the sewage in the water or just on the land, they can pay a very small fee to take it to this processing center, and then it'll be cheap enough that the law will really get people to comply with that. So the fact that the government said, hey, we're serious about sanitation, and there's this recognition that the malnutrition levels in India, which are much higher than they should be, that this lack of good sanitation processing is a very significant element in that. It means that we see this technology, although we only have one machine right now, we're looking for partners and we want to ramp it up and get it out into the Indian cities.
So it could be feasible for India, because in India our big problem is our rivers are dead. Most of our rivers are dead, and the Ganga, our most holy river, and it signifies India, is in really bad shape. We did a study where we measured every 100 kilometers the water quality, and it deteriorates dramatically before and after every town. The difference is huge. So if one could is it actually feasible to put these at the sewage points?
Absolutely. I mean,
wow,
this is probably a 5 to 10 year project, but there are examples in the West of taking rivers like the Potomac outside our capital.
Yes.
That was a disaster. There's two sources of problems. One, the biggest is sanitation.
Yes.
Then you also have to look and see if there's industrial waste going in there, and tighten up the laws and have practical solutions like this omniprocessor that processes the sewage and creates value.
Wow, it really, I mean, cleaning the Ganga and cleaning our rivers can transform lives in India. In terms of education and health, what's different about the Gates Foundation is that you do have a technology aspect to everything. That education you're going to get through online learning, which is going to transform. It's not going to be the old style of just listen to somebody lecture. You can question back, interact. Tell us a bit about technology and change in health and in education.
So Bill and I are both huge believers in innovation, and technology is one innovation that just really sparks change. And I think in the sector of education, what we're seeing today in the United States is that having access to a great teacher is so critically important. And yet most students around the world don't have access to a great teacher. So we're looking at how do you have a great teacher supplemented with fantastic online tools, because then you can personalize the learning. So as those technologies come along, then it will be a matter of how are other governments and other private citizens going to deploy them in their own countries? And we think that will be a lever of huge change in the education system. So no matter where you live, even if you're a remote rural area and maybe you have a great teacher who takes you up through 4th grade, you still have access to great learning even beyond that.
Okay, I'm being told to wrap. So I've got 5 rapid fire questions which you can answer yes or no. So you are wonderful leaders. You work far too hard. You set a very bad example in that front, working too hard for us to follow. Which is harder work, running organizations or bringing up children? Because I've
heard. We're having fun with both. Maybe it's going to get tougher. But the foundation, we've gotten, a really good teams.
I'd say children are tough.
Yeah, probably. Certainly the toughest will be when we'll have some episodes where that'll be the toughest.
Yeah. Software development and all this new technology, in a word, will it create jobs or lose jobs in the long run?
Well, it'll do huge amounts of both. Until we have all the old people being taken care of and every student with the individual attention, there are labor needs that the world doesn't fulfill because labor is expensive. Now, we may have to retrain people, we may have to change tax systems. So it's happening so fast that governments will have to get involved in this. But it will do a lot of both, and there are people starting to worry about that.
And I wouldn't just say create jobs, though. Is that even the right question? The question is, will it empower women? And they are going to be a lever in the economy
and
as
they're
well.
going to actually be the big change, particularly in countries like India. Finally, if the Prime Minister just walked in now, the Prime Minister of India, what would you say to him?
We'd say, hey, you're off to a good start. We want to help you. Let's get these bank accounts not only open but used. Can we get them on the digital phone where the transaction fees will be lower? Let's get these toilets so they're attractive and they get used. And we want to pitch in any way we can. Those are great goals.
Fantastic goals.
And this is your 21st wedding anniversary. What are you planning for it?
We took
Hawaii?
a nice vacation. We were actually down in Mexico, and
okay, that's lovely. Thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
So you do relax sometimes.
Oh,
we do.
absolutely.
That's when we get our reading done.
God bless you.